Hey, Shalom. First and foremost, giving all praises, honor, glory, and worship unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Ruchakodash. Double honors unto the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and salutations unto Achim, upholding the testimony of our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai, in truth and in sincerity. This is part two, pardon me. This is part two of Revelations, the 17th chapter. And we're going to start at verse 9. Revelations chapter 17. This is the overview of Revelations, the 17th chapter. And we're starting at verse 9. It says, "And here's the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth." And as we spoke of in the last lesson, part 1, that woman is Babylon the Great, which is America. Pardon me. He says, well, and also, if I may add, the 7 heads is speaking of NATO. It's speaking of the EU. When it says 7 mountains, that's talking about those ancient provinces of Rome, but now they exist as the EU. All right, those original 10 EU nations, they are those 7 heads. That's why it says the beast had 7 heads and 10 horns. Verse 10, and there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, right? Because that's out of those 7 heads of the dragon, or of the beast, of the dragon, right? It says 5 are fallen, right? And those five that had fallen were the Greeks, the French, the Spanish, Germania Major, and Germania Minor. Germania Major and Germania Minor. All right. And it says, it says 5 are fallen and 1 is, and that 1 was the Roman Empire. And it says, and the other is not yet come, which is Great Britain. That's speaking of Great Britain. It says, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, it says, in the beast that was and is not, which is the Roman Empire, it was and is not because Rome had fallen. It says, even he is the 8th, all right, which the Roman Empire came back as America. That's the 8th. It says, and is of the 7, all right. So America is the reincarnation of the Roman Empire. That's why America is considered the 8th. It says, and is of the 7, right? Because America comes from the 7. America comes from Great Britain. She comes from the French. She comes from the Spanish. All right. It's also written in the book of Daniel. It says, and goeth into perdition, right? Because America will be destroyed. All right. When you go into the book of Daniel, it speaks about America coming from those 3 empires. All right, in the book of Daniel. In fact, I'm gonna try to get it. I actually can't remember exactly what chapter that is. Let's go to Daniel. Was it the? If I can't find it, it's fine. We'll just. Is it chapter? Night vision, behold, the fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, which this is talking about the Roman Empire right here. Daniel 7:7. It says, "In this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly," talking about the military might of Rome. It says, "and had great iron teeth," going to the military strength. It says, "it devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it," right? Because Rome was run by a senate, and it was not a monarchy like the Persians, the Greeks. All those were monarchies. When the Greek Empire came about with Alexander and so on and so forth, those were not democracies. All those were monarchies. Okay, the Babylonians were monarchies. Syrians were monarchies. All right, so Rome was different from that through the Senate. All right, and through the fact that those Caesars their sons did not succeed them. Only time that happened was Vespasian. His sons succeeded him. Otherwise, those Caesar's sons did not succeed them. It was not a monarchy. All right. Now, oh yes, I believe this is the point in verse 8. Did we get to verse 8? No, we didn't. Let's continue to read in verse 7. It says, "and stamped the residue with the feet of it," that's talking about 70 AD when Rome destroyed Judah, Benjamin, and Levi and destroyed the temple. It says, "and was diverse from the beasts that were before it." I can't believe I didn't mention that earlier. I'm sorry. It says, "and it had 10 horns." We were speaking about the 10 horns, all right, earlier, which that's going into essentially the EU nations, because that same Roman Empire has come back as the EU and NATO. It says, "I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn." All right, which was the same thing we were reading in the book of Revelation. It says is the eighth, but is of the seven. This is talking about, that's talking about America, and this is talking about America. It says, "another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots," and that's of the 7. Who are those horns plucked up by the root? That is speaking of Great Britain, the French, and the Spanish, because America kicked them out of this land, of the land of America. I'm speaking like that because I live in America, so out of America. It says let's see, first horn plucked up by the roots. "And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man," meaning having wisdom. America is known for its intellect, its science. It says, "in a mouth speaking great things." And yes, America is also known for speaking very proudly. All right. Is known for, speaking very filthy. That's one of the things America's known for. All right. Speaking against God himself. America speaks against God. That's Babylon the Great. Right? I'll read verse 9, then we'll go back. It says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down. All these thrones, remember it said 7 kings in the book of Revelations? So all these guys are going to get cast down. It says, and the Ancient of Days did sit. That's talking about the Most High Yahweh, the Most High God of the universe. He's the Ancient of Days. It says, whose garment was white as snow, which that represents his purity as well. It says, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. So the God of the universe has woolly hair. All right. It says, his throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Talking about his chariot, it's going into the chariot, which that's when you go to the term chariot or rakab or marakab in the Hebrew, marakabah, whatever you would like to say, that means seat. It can mean vehicle, but it also means seat. All right. All right. Anyway, let's go back to Revelations. Because after America, God is about to destroy. God's going to destroy America. Yahweh Shai, Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, which Yahweh Shai is his son. It's not going to be any other empire or kingdom to rule after America other than the kingdom of heaven, which is going to be ruled by the Israelites. All right. It's not going, according to prophecy, America is that last kingdom of the heathens to have dominion on earth. All right, now let's go back to Revelations, not the 7th chapter. We did the 17th chapter. Email continuous space. Sun location. All right, verse 12. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet. It's talking about those EU nations, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. And those EU nations have power through America. America is the reason why those EU nations have power. If it wasn't for America in World War II, those EU nations would be, they wouldn't be what they are. America wouldn't be. Everything happens according to prophecy. All right. America's the one. I made the point on that. I'm gonna keep reading. Says when out with the beast. All right. Which that's roughly. I'm not gonna go into those mathematical details, but just know that they're living on borrowed time. All right, verse 13. It says, "These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast." That's why you see those EU nations, they fighting against Russia, even though fighting against Russia for them is stupid and is dangerous. But they're doing it because America is leading them to do that. But they're right on the doorsteps of Russia. That's not smart for them to do, but they're doing that because they have one mind with America. It says, verse 14, it says, "These shall make war with the Lamb." So America and the EU nations are going to fight against the Messiah. You guys about to you're going to get deep fried. It says, "And the Lamb shall overcome them," which the Lamb is speaking of Yahweh Shai, the Messiah. It says, "For he is Lord of lords and King of kings. And they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore." Right, those EU nations are going to begin to hate America. It's happening right now. They're already starting to hate America, especially because of this Russia-Ukraine war and how proud Trump speaks against those EU nations. You know, but it's going to get worse. It's going to get way worse. All right. It says, and shall make her desolate. And it says, they shall hate the whore, which the whore is speaking of America. It says, and shall make her desolate and naked. It's talking about expose America. All right. And shall eat her. And it's also talking about shooting missiles on America. It says, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. It's not talking about actually eating the whores. Oh, they ate a whore, a physical woman. No, it's talking about they're going to shoot missiles on America. The EU nations are going to shoot missiles on America. Verse 17, and God shall put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and to give their kingdom unto the beast, all right, which is the NATO EU system. It says, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. But that system is going to break up, all right? Verse 18, and the woman which thou sawest is that great city. Who is the great city? You thought America just wasn't written in the Bible? Wow, I don't think you that stupid. Anyway, it says, the woman which thou sawest is that great city. That's talking about America. It says, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. What nation reigns over the kings of the earth? Who controls the monetary system of the earth? Who has over 1,000 military bases on the planet? Okay, exactly. All right, so with that, we'll give all praises, honor, glory, and worship to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Rakakadash. Double honors into the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Salutation, Shalom.